All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're talking all about cybersecurity, specifically the different ways that attackers actually get into our digital lives. These are what we call threat vectors.
So let me just ask you this. How secure do you think your digital world really is? It seems like a simple question, right? But the answer is, well, it's pretty complicated. Every single day, we're using all these devices and accounts that could be a potential doorway for an attacker. So the real question is, do you even know where your weak spots are? So here's our game plan for today. We're going to start by figuring out what your personal attack surface even is. Then we'll dive into how attackers go after people, the human element. After that, we'll look at the tech side of things, followed by a really sneaky one, the supply chain threat. And we'll wrap it all up with how you can build a much stronger defense. Okay, so to really get how attackers break in, we first have to understand what it is they're trying to break into. And honestly, the best way to picture this is to think of your entire digital life as your own personal fortress. Think about it. Your phone, your laptop, your email, all your social media accounts, all of that stuff makes up the walls and the gates of this digital fortress. Your attack surface is basically just the sum of all the possible ways someone could get in. Every door, every window, every supply line an attacker could possibly use.
Now here's where things get really interesting. Most of the time, attackers don't start by trying to smash down the walls. Nope, they try to trick the person guarding the main gate. And you know who that is? That's you. This whole strategy is called social engineering. It's not a technical hack targeting your software. It's a psychological one. You could almost call it a human hack. It plays on our natural instincts like trust or fear or a sense of urgency to convince us to just open the gates for them. And the most common type of social engineering out there is phishing. I'm sure you've seen this. An attacker sends an email that looks like it's from your bank or Amazon or maybe even your boss. The whole goal is to fool you into clicking a bad link or giving up your password.
And you know, a single phishing email can be unbelievably dangerous. One source we looked at calls it a triple whammy. See, you're not just getting tricked into handing over your password. The fake website you land on can also secretly be installing malware, like Trojans, onto your machine at the same time. It's a nasty, multi-layered attack, and it all starts with just one little click.
But it's not just emails you have to worry about. When these exact same tricks are used over the phone, it's called vishing. That's voice phishing. You know those spam calls, the automated ones claiming to be from the IRS or your bank? They create a panic to make you act fast without thinking. That's phishing. And of course, when the attack comes through a text message, it's called smishing. Attackers are smart. They know we tend to trust our text messages more than our emails. It feels more personal. And that makes us way more likely to click on a link about a package delivery or a bank alert without really thinking twice.
So if you look at all three, phishing, vishing, and smishing, the key takeaway is this. It doesn't matter if it's an email, a phone call, or a text. The strategy is exactly the same. It's all about deception. They disguise themselves as something you trust to trick you into breaking your own security.
Okay, so we've covered how attackers trick the gatekeeper, you. Now let's switch gears and look at how they try to break through the fortress walls themselves by going after your technology. So for your computer's apps to talk to the internet, they use these things called service ports. A good way to think of them is like doors and windows. Now, if one of those ports is accidentally left open and isn't secured, it's pretty much the digital version of an unlocked door, giving an attacker a wide open path right into your system.
Right, so you're probably wondering, how on earth do they find these unlocked doors? It's a huge internet out there. Well, they don't have to guess. They have automated tools that do all the work for them. Attackers basically have a digital locksmith kit. They use tools like Nmap, MassScan, and Netcat to automatically scan millions and millions of systems. They're just rattling every single digital doorknob they can find until one of them opens. And it's not just open ports. Another huge weakness is using old, outdated software. You see, when a developer stops releasing security updates or patches for an app or an operating system, any known flaws become permanent, unfixable holes. These are literally the crumbling parts of your fortress walls that attackers know exactly how to exploit. All right, now let's talk about a much more subtle and frankly more dangerous kind of threat. This one doesn't just look for cracks in the walls, it poisons the very bricks the fortress was built with. In the world of cybersecurity,
The supply chain is every single piece of hardware and software that goes into a final product you use. It could be a tiny microchip from one company, a piece of code from another, and the thing is, the security of the final product is only as strong as its weakest link.
So here's how a supply chain attack usually works. They don't attack you directly. Instead, they find a trusted supplier. Let's say a company that makes a really common software tool. They hack that company, inject their malicious code, and then that company unknowingly ships the infected product out to everyone, including you. It's delivered right inside your fortress, just like a Trojan horse. And finally, let's talk about one of the easiest vulnerabilities to fix, yet one of the most common: default credentials. You know how every new router or camera you buy comes with a generic password like admin or password? Well, those default passwords are all publicly known. So if you don't change them, you are literally leaving the key to your fortress right under the welcome mat for anyone to come along and find.
So, after hearing about all these different threats, you might be feeling a little overwhelmed, but don't be. How do we protect our fortress? Well, it all comes down to being a vigilant guardian and using layers of defense. Here's our checklist for defending the fortress. First, we have to train the gatekeeper. That's you, to spot social engineering from a mile away. Next, lock all the doors and windows with a properly configured firewall. We have to repair those crumbling walls by always patching our software. We gotta stop leaving keys under the mat by changing every single default password. And finally, we have to inspect everything that comes through the gates by scanning things like USB drives for malware before we ever use them.
And that brings us right back to where we started. Just understanding these threat vectors is a huge first step. You now have a map of the battlefield, and you know the basic tools to start reinforcing your walls. So the real question is, are you ready to be the guardian your digital fortress needs you to be?